The Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privileges of the floor will kindly retire to the gallery. The senators will stand and be led in prayer by the Reverend Tyrone Nelson, 6 Mount Zion Baptist Church, Richmond. Reverend Nelson, thank you so much.
Let us pray. Dear God, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing the privilege and responsibility to govern. Thank you for loving us from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and justice. Therefore, I pray today for the Senate of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern, a sense of welfare and true needs of his people, a keen thirst for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set before them this day. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live in the Commonwealth. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
Madam Clerk.
Mr. President, disclosure forms of the senators-elect have been filed with the Virginia Conflict of Interest and Ethics Advisory Council, and the senator-elects have been certified by the State Board of Elections.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The clerk will please call the roll. All those present will vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
All the senators-elect will please stand at their desk. And if any of you have a family Bible or talisman that you want to have at your desk, we welcome you to have that. If you will please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties incumbent upon me as a member of the Senate of Virginia, according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
The senators will please sign the oath and copy on their desk, and the staff will collect them and deliver them to the clerk for referral to the Committee on Privileges and Elections. The Senate will stand at ease. For the senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I would respectfully move that the privileges of the floor be extended to certain distinguished persons.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the privileges of the floor be granted to distinguished persons? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The privileges of the floor are granted. I would like to take this opportunity before we introduce the new senators to welcome all of the family and guests to the gallery today and to the floor of the Senate. I know that this is an exciting day for not only you all, but for the new senators who have been elected. And it's a tremendous privilege for us to serve the Commonwealth of Virginia, a tremendous privilege for those that are senators in this body. And I can promise you, having been down that road, that they could not do it without the support of their friends and family. So we thank you for being here today to share this special occasion, and wish you the best in 2016. I will call on the senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the body, those in the gallery, it's my privilege to introduce to this body our newly sworn Senator, Senator Chase. Mr. President, Amanda Chase grew up in Chesterfield with her parents who are present today, Dorsey and Tina Freeman, her brother David Freeman. She then went on to receive her business degree focused in finance and management from Virginia Tech, for all you Hokies. Amanda married her high school sweetheart, Mike, and 23 years ago, and gained her mother-in-law and father-in-law, Barbara and Ron Chase, who are present today. Amanda and Mike have 4 children, Melanie, Joe, Tim, and Daniel, who Amanda homeschooled for 8 years. Throughout her career, Amanda has served in management for several S&P 500 companies, the Federal Reserve Bank here in Richmond. She's also started several businesses, including political consulting and financial services. She's also had the privilege to work for 3 of our elected congressmen. She finally got smart and came to the right body. Amanda has ran a very impressive primary race to get here, and we all know what that takes, and then to get across the line. One thing I want to tell you about Amanda, I've known her since long before I even thought about entering this body, being engaged in politics. And it's nice and it's refreshing for me to know that there are those in the body that come to here that have an undying faith and devotion to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And so for me to have a seatmate that is in that same spirit is refreshing, and I'm so thankful that she got across the line. I welcome to our body. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you our newly minted Senator, Amanda Chase.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for a point of introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce our newest member from the city of Virginia Beach, our new junior senator from Virginia Beach. He is here accompanied today by his daughter, Jenna, his son, Michael, and his significant other, Patty. Let me tell you a little bit about Senator DeStef. He was a Desert Storm veteran. He served honorably in the Navy. After getting out of the Navy, Senator DeStef worked as a senior vice president and co-owner of a major defense contractor, engineered the sale of that company, did very, very well in the sale, I might add. Has moved on and has opened up probably 3 or 4 other businesses. Every time I go to visit him, he's got multiple offices with many, many placards on there. But he's been an honored veteran. He served as city council of Virginia Beach for a number of years, moved to the House of Delegates. Only took him 2 years to come to the conclusion that that was not the place for him, and he came over and joined us in the Senate. So, Mr. President, I ask you to give a warm welcome to Senator DeStef and his guests.
Thank you, Senator Wagner. Welcome, Senator. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction, sir.
Senator has the floor.
It is indeed my pleasure to introduce one of our newer senators to you. And I think many of you know her by her maiden name. It is very interesting, if you have followed this family over the years, that there must be something in their DNA that leads them to public service. One of the things that I always try to impart to my students at William & Mary when I teach is a calling for public service. And if out of a group of students I can find one each year that is willing to go to public service, I feel like that has exceeded any academic expectations I should have. But Siobhan Donovan is our newest senator, replacing our dearly departed friend, Senator Walter Stosh. She has an extraordinary background behind her. All of you know multiple members of her family that have contributed to that DNA. As you know, she is a health care provider. I think she is going to bring a very valuable perspective to the Senate of Virginia as we continue to deal with some of those very challenging issues in the area of health and human resources. She received her undergraduate degree from Randolph-Macon Women's College, as I think it was named then before they started selling their artwork. She also obtained her medical degree from Eastern Virginia Medical School. As you may imagine, she has all of her extended family here, and frankly, it would take us to about 2 o'clock to identify each and every one of them, but she's going to be a marvelous member of the Senate of Virginia, and I think that we all will look forward to working with her. And so if you would please join me in welcoming Savon Donovan to the Senate of Virginia.
The senator from Southern Fairfax County, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, it's my pleasure to introduce to the body today the new senator from Prince William County, Jeremy McPike. Those of us who represent Northern Virginia, almost all of us were not born in Virginia, did not grow up in Northern Virginia, and have moved to the area. But with the addition of 2 new senators this year over here in the corner, we actually have 2 who actually are Northern Virginia natives. Jeremy is one of those. And just to give you a little perspective on things, he is filling the seat of Senator Chuck Colgan, who was elected on November 4th, 1975. When Chuck Colgan was elected to the Senate, he picked up a constituent who was all of 46 days old at that point, having been born in Dale City, or living in Dale City in Prince William County. Jeremy has continued to live in Dale City, in the Dale City area, throughout his life. He and his family, he grew up there. His wife's from the area as well, and is clearly a strong tie to the Prince William County area. He went to George Mason University for both undergraduate and graduate degrees, then got a job shortly after finishing his master's program there with the City of Alexandria, where he's now head of general services for the City of Alexandria. And just to tell you how well regarded he is in the City of Alexandria, last year when I had talked with him about potentially running, he said, well, I got to get approval from somebody in the city, but I don't know who at this point, because there was no city manager there. I immediately called the mayor, who was in a car with the 3 of the city council members. They voted 4-0 to empower him to run for the state senate. Said he'd done a great job in the city, and they knew he would do a great job here as well. He also has a long history of serving the community, and among the many different types of things he's done, he's been a volunteer firefighter in the Prince William area for the last 16 years. He had a little bit of a rough start there with the job, and I can assure you that one of his fellow new senators will not have competition from him. Shortly after he started working as a volunteer firefighter in 1999, he ended up having to deliver a baby in the middle of the night one time. And after he'd gotten the baby out and everything, he said, what do I do now? And they said, well, check the APGAR score. He said, where's that? They said, on the back. So he immediately turned the baby over looking for the APGAR, but couldn't find it there. So, but the baby did have a good APGAR score in the end once he figured out what he was supposed to do, and things have gone well since then. He's been very instrumental in a number of environmental things, and actually the Dale City Volunteer Fire Department's office, their headquarters there, became the first LEED Gold certified volunteer fire station in the United States of America with his leadership in helping get that done. With him today is his wife, Sharon, and his 3 daughters, Emily, Erin, and Sarah. And it's certainly my pleasure to present to you the new senator from Prince William County. Come back in 2055, we may have another one then. So, you know, every 40 years we pick up a new one in Prince William. So, thank you very much, Mr. President.
Welcome, Senator McPike. Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for the purposes of introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, it is my pleasure to introduce the new senator from Richmond City, Glenn Sturdivant. Glenn is, even though he lives in the city now, and those of us from the country still refer to it as the big city, Glenn grew up in rural Spotsylvania County. And after graduating from law school, came to Richmond, and he and his wife, Lori, have 3 beautiful children who are standing right behind us, very involved in the process already. Glenn is a practicing attorney here in Richmond, and he has spent much of his time working on issues relating to education on the school board. Glenn's wife is also a school teacher, and so they are very focused on education, and with 3 precocious little children, I know that he has to be continued to focus on that. Robin and I got to know Glenn through our time going door to door with him, and one of the things I have learned over the last few months is his tenacious desire to get the job done, and I am super excited about him being in the Senate, as is his littlest one there. So congratulations, Glenn, and welcome to the Senate.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I rise for an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, it's my great privilege and honor to introduce to the body our new senator from Roanoke County, Dave Suetterlein. Dave and his wife Ashley live in Roanoke County, where they're raising their young son and daughter, who are going to be enrolled in the public schools there for the next 17 years. Good luck, both of you, and wish you well in that. Dave grew up in a military family, as his father served in the Air Force and his mother taught in the public schools. David graduated with high honors from Grove City College, and Dave and my former longtime legislative aide graduated together, were best friends, and I got to know Dave very well during those years as I went to him and to my aide for guidance and advice, and you know, they wound up during their years as legislative directors and aides being probably more influential than a lot of us in directing votes in this body. Dave's far better half, Ashley, who's sitting in the back row, is the daughter of a jet mechanic and a church secretary. Ashley was raised in East Tennessee, where she attended the public schools there. She ran track and played volleyball at King College, where she graduated with a bachelor's degree in nursing. Before the birth of their children, Ashley worked as a registered nurse in a medical center ICU, and also in a private practice in an allergy and asthma office. Faith and service are what are most important to Ashley and Dave. They attend Fellowship Community Church, and Dave volunteers with a youth ministry and a rescue mission in Roanoke. He served Southwest Virginia for a number of years as Ralph Smith's legislative director, served for 8 years in that role and that capacity before his own election to this body, and before that he even served in capacity working for a senator from Western Fairfax for a number of years. Dave's been around. Dave probably knows the practices, the rules, and the traditions of the Senate a lot better than many of us do. I look forward to serving with Dave over the next 4 years, and I would ask you to join me in welcoming the new senator from Roanoke County, Dave Suetterlein.
The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Mr. President, I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
It is my pleasure to present our new colleague from Eastern Fairfax County, Scott Survell. Scott is a 12th generation Virginian and the 3rd Survell to serve in the Senate. Preceding him were his daughter Eva, who was a page in last year's session, and his daughter Leah, who began her service as a page 2 days before her father on Monday. But at least Scott will have seniority over his other kids seated behind me, Mara, age 10, and Colin, age 8. Also joining us are Scott's wife, Erin Madden, in the gallery, his mother, Glenda Booth, and his dad, Rob Survell, stepmother, Janice Survell, and Uncle Ed Survell. Senator Survell is a graduate of JMU, UVA Law School, and served as a governor's fellow during the Wilder administration. It was my pleasure to work with Scott during his 3 terms in the House, where he served as Democratic Caucus Chair and led the successful effort to repeal the tax on hybrid vehicles. Scott is not only a tenacious advocate, but he is a hands-on public servant. When constituents complained about the pollution in Little Hunting Creek in his district, he began organizing a minimum of 3 stream cleanups a year. His cleanups have removed an estimated 50 tons of trash, including over 180 shopping carts per year. His cleanups have also removed 100 tires, 50 bikes, 12 mattresses, 1 gun, and no offense to my friends on the other side of the aisle, a 4x8 Romney sign. He is very responsive. Feel free to call Scott at all hours. If you email him at 1 in the morning, I promise you from experience, you will get a response by 1:01 a.m. He is an attorney in the law firm of Survell, Isaacs, Peterson, and Levy, along with a gentleman from Fairfax City. And Scott was named a super lawyer by Super Lawyer magazine, and I'm not making that up. He isn't just a super lawyer, though. Our colleague is also a super dad and a soccer coach. Once, when we were presenting a commending resolution, he mentioned that he'd been coaching just a half hour before on the field. When I asked him if he always wore his suit to soccer games, he unbuttoned his dress shirt to show that he was still wearing his uniform underneath. Scott claims that he will be a major upgrade over his law partner in the Senate basketball team. I ask, Mr. President, that you extend the warm welcome of the Senate to Senator Survell and his family.
Thank you, Senator. Welcome, Senator Survell. Well, on behalf of the staff and all of the senators, we welcome the new senators. It's great seeing the youth that has come into the floor of the Senate. And as I said earlier, this is just a tremendous privilege, and it's a very great body here, and I think you'll find that you'll become great friends. These will be some of the most lasting relationships that you have. So I congratulate all of you all, and to the friends and family, again, thank you all for being here. I would ask all of our guests and our senators to please join me in offering our new senators the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senate will stand at ease while our guests on the floor exit the body, and we're going to make room for our pages that are coming in. So thank you all for being here. The Senate's at ease. The Senate will come to order. The time has come to recognize visitors to the gallery. I know he's got one. Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal. Y'all are shy this morning.
Mr. President, everybody was jumping up at once. I just wanted to wait my turn. Mr. President, in the gallery, we have the family of my seatmate, the gentleman from Franklin. We have his, a large number of his family members, and it took him a little bit of time to transcribe all their names down so that I did not forget anybody. The ones I do remember very easily are his wife, Laura, who is right above me, his daughter, Aubrey, his son, Chandler, is with us, his father-in-law, Bill Hendrickson, and his mother-in-law, Dee Hendrickson, and then Laura's brother, Billy. And his son, Colin, is a page, which we will get to in a very little bit, but if you could offer each of them the warm welcome of the Senate.
I sure will. Thank you, Senator. Would members of the Stanley family please rise? Thank you all so much for being here. And Laura, thank you especially. Whenever you're here, your husband is much better behaved. So if you could just be here every day, we would certainly appreciate that. But thanks for bringing your wonderful family with you today, and look forward to your frequent visits. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Senator Stanley's family the warm welcome of the Senate. Senator from Buckingham, Senator Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, joining us in the gallery today are some very special people, and that's the wife and son of my seatmate, Senator Bryce Reeves. Mr. President, I would like to inform the gallery of some pretty neat things. We've had a lot of people talking about elections and campaigns today and welcoming new senators. I'd like to inform the body that on March 16th, it will be 25 years since Senator Reeves won his most important campaign, that for the hand in marriage of Miss Ann Cater. Joining Bryce's wife Ann today is his son Jack, who is a starting attacker for the FXPG Patriots. He leads that team in scoring, hopes to one day become a Senate page, and had a hat trick in their last tournament in Virginia Beach. Mr. President, I'd ask that the members of the and people in the gallery join us in giving the warm welcome of the Senate to Ann and Jack Reeves. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Will Ann and Jack and members of the Bryce Reeves please rise? Welcome, and thank you all so much for being here, and I know it means the world to your husband for you to be here and support him, and also while he's here to keep the train running on time at home. So thanks for all you do. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Ann and Jack Reeves a warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley. Turn your microphone on, Senator.
Thank you. Mr. President, I rise for the purposes of an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, today we have a lot of great family members in the gallery, and it's my pleasure and honor to introduce my seatmate's family. When he was writing his down, it took a lot less time than mine did. But nevertheless, we have with us today in the gallery Dr. Robin McDougal and his beautiful daughter, Regan. And Mr. President, Reagan, sorry. He didn't put an A down here, it was just an E. But, Mr. President, Dr. Robin McDougall is a professor of criminal justice at VCU. It's kind of like NCIS Richmond. And Reagan is a very beautiful young lady, and I've been told by Senator McDougall that in no way will my son ever be able to date her. That's what he wrote. But, Mr. President, once again, when you notice up in the gallery Dr. Robin and Reagan, you will notice once again, as I've said before, that you can be smart and beautiful and still have the last name of McDougall. So extend them the warm welcome of the Senate, if you would.
Thank you, Senator. Would Dr. McDougall and family please rise? It's always wonderful to see you all here, and thanks for being here to keep an eye on your daddy today. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering the McDougall family the warm welcome of the Senate. Sergeant at Arms, please receive it. Welcome, Delegate Cox. Thank you, Delegate. The clerk will please receive it. The Senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Mr. President, I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
It is my pleasure to introduce Thomas Gibson. Thomas is a native of Spotsylvania and got his master's degree from UVA. Lieutenant Gibson is a real estate developer for Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. He served on active duty and in the U.S. Marine Corps and now in the Marine Reserves. Please extend the warm welcome of the Senate to Lieutenant Gibson.
I will. Thank you, Senator. Would Lieutenant Gibson please rise? Lieutenant Gibson, thank you for being here this morning, and also thank you for your service to the country. And I know you and your family and all of us are proud of your Marine service. So we appreciate you being here and wish you the best. I would ask all the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Lieutenant Gibson the warm welcome of the Senate. Are there any other introductions for the morning? Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougall.
Mr. President, I'd like to call up Senate Resolution number 4.
Thank you, Senator. The Senate will pause while we pass out those copies.
Mr. President. Mr. President, I would respectfully ask that the Senate now stand in recess until 1 o'clock in order that some members can review the rules that have been distributed.
And that's fine. If I could make one more introduction before we do that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, thanks. The Senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, in the gallery we have family members of the senator from Newport News, his wife Sharon Kitchen Miller, and his daughter Jenny Kitchen. If you would please give them the warm welcome of the Senate.
I will, thank you. Would Sharon Miller and Jenny Kitchen please rise? It's always good seeing you all here, and thank you for being here to support the good senator from Newport News, and look forward to seeing you frequently here in the capital city. I'd ask all the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Sharon and Jenny the warm welcome of the Senate. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we recess, I rise for purposes of another introduction, please, sir.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. In the gallery is one of the extraordinary Virginians that we have all had the opportunity to know in various positions. The former lieutenant governor and the former president of the Senate of Virginia, the Honorable John Hager. If you would be so kind to extend a very warm welcome to his return to the Senate of Virginia, sir.
I will. Thank you, Senator. Lieutenant Governor Hager, it's always good seeing you. And as we have said before, the most important and influential office to hold in the Commonwealth of Virginia is Lieutenant Governor. So we appreciate you being here, and it's always good seeing you. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Lieutenant Governor Hager the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senate will stand in recess until 1 o'clock.
Mr. President, I apologize.
If the Henrico, Senator McEachin.
If the Senate Democratic Caucus could retire to the anteroom immediately off of the chamber to discuss these new rules.
Thank you, Senator. The senator stands in recess. The Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privileges of the floor will kindly retire to the gallery. The hour having arrived for the joint assembly to receive the governor, the senators will rise and proceed to the hall of the House of Delegates, accompanied by the President of the Senate and the Clerk of the Senate. Upon adjournment of the joint assembly, the senators will return to the Senate chamber. Thank you. The Senate will come to order. Is there any other business to come before the Senate? The chair recognizes the senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 12 noon tomorrow.
The question is, shall the Senate adjourn until 12 o'clock noon tomorrow? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The Senate stands adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow.
good, what you're supposed to do.
The Senate will come to order. Senator McDougal has called up Senate Resolution 22. Being procedural, the resolution will be taken up for immediate consideration. The clerk will please report the resolution.
Senate Resolution number 22, establishing the rules of the Senate.
Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I move that Senate Resolution 22 be agreed to, and speaking to the motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the body, what I'd like to do is go through the rules and offer up a brief explanation of each of the changes so everybody is aware, and then if there are questions or concerns at the end, we can address those. So, Mr. President, starting with Rule 2B, you'll see in here it removes from the President pro tem from being chair of the Commission of Interstate Cooperation, and you'll find that we're moving that to the Rules Committee. As we go through the rules, there are a couple places where matters that will deal with appointments are being returned to the Rules Committee. One is in the code, so we had to return it. We just missed it in previous versions of the rules. As you move on to page 3 of the rules, you will see the new language in item number 3.7. You'll see the new language relating to the election and appointment of pages. And this is in line with the email that Madam Clerk circulated to each of the members. And at the end of the day, what it means is that each member will be able to appoint 1 page during a long session and 1 page during a short session every 4 years. Mr. President, next you would move on to item number 10A on page 6. And historically, and I'm not sure we were able to delineate where the change came or where the language came, but we had a messenger versus a page, and each of them do the same role, and we felt it was important to call them all pages. So that's what we're doing with that change. If you move on to page 7, at the end of item number 10A, it deletes language relating to the supply of office supplies, but if you will look back to item 8H, you will see that that language was already in existence as a single item, and so we're just only listing it once. If you move on to 11B, it provides for the use of electronic calendars. Many of us use our iPads as we're looking at the calendar. This prevents the requirement that we have to print extra calendars and place them on each member's desk if they are using some other device like their iPad or their notebook computer. The clerk will still make those available to anybody who would like to use a printed calendar, but it will save us some expense of not having to print them every day and have them on each person's desk. As you move on down to item number 13, we deleted some antiquated historical language, so we will no longer have to bind the rules and the constitutions together. We will just be able to print them, which will save us some money, but they will still all be available. We're not changing their availability. You move on to item number 17A, and 17A and B, and that is the change that takes the tables out of the front of the chamber, allowing more space for the pages and the members to operate, but still places the news media in proximity to the chamber by having assigned seats in the gallery. You move on to item number 18. 4 years ago, when the Senate was at 2020, we put in language specifying that the President of the Senate is empowered to break a vote. I think as we went through that process, it is pretty clear of what the President's abilities or lack thereof are in the Constitution, and the decision was made that this language really had no effect because the Constitution is the one that will control. So we took it out in the latest version. As you move through the next items, there are a couple of different changes on the numbers of committees, and they're on different lines and as each committee is listed out, but I'll just talk directly about each one of them. Local government is going from 15 members to 13 members. Privileges and elections is going from 15 members to 13 members. Transportation is going from 15 members to 13 members. And rules are going from no more than 17 members to 15 members. In that section as well, there is the language about the Commission on Interstate Cooperation that we moved from the first page into Rule 19A, and in the rule section, which is on 19G, some grammatical clarification about the requesting of center aisle presentations, and that has to be at least 48 hours. We will continue the practice of strongly encouraging, if not insisting, that they be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but we made the decision not to put that in the rules in case there was some unique exception that we needed to deal with. Moving on to 19H, and Mr. President, I'll advise the body, this has been an area of consternation between the Senate and the House over the years, and that is the makeup of commissions and subcommittees that have both House and Senate membership that meet outside of session. We have tried to come up with resolutions to this. We have, as for yet, been unsuccessful, so we're taking a different tack this year. We've made this offer to the House. They have not yet agreed, but this will give us some flexibility. In the language that we have, we are saying that half of those subcommittees or commissions have to have equal membership with the Senate and House members, and half do not have to have that. So the House has not yet agreed, but we are trying to offer an olive branch and come up with some sort of ability to cooperate as we have these commissions and joint subcommittees, which oftentimes do very important work. Mr. President, as you move on to item number 20A, the composition and procedures of the committees, we had some challenges as we were going through dealing with the congressional boundaries. So in some part, you could argue where those congressional boundaries are depending on what side of the Supreme Court case you want to be on. So we took the congressional boundaries language out and now are doing it in geographic balance. Mr. President, later on in that second paragraph, this is on page 17, lines 445 through 447, have that the only committee that has a co-chairman is the Finance Committee, and that the co-chairman will be the first two named senators of the majority party. Mr. President, as you move on to page 19, Rule 20E, there's lines 485 and 486. Some of the members recall we had some pretty significant differences of interpretation of when a proxy can be in effect during committees, and so we wanted to make sure that we didn't get into that in the future. So we clearly spell out that the proxy is only during the duration in which the senator is in the confines of Capitol Square. As Madam Clerk and her staff looked at Capitol Square, that will include the Patrick Henry Building, the Governor's Mansion, Mr. President's office, and the Capitol. So that those different places will be within Capitol Square to make sure everybody is on the same page. Mr. President, next you move to rule number 26B. We add in the words electronic patronage. This is to bring us into practice to what we are now doing in being able to file your bills electronically. So this is just a word cleanup. And then, Mr. President, as you move on to 26F, this is one area where we were conversing with our friends at the other end of the building. We were able to come up with some consensus, and you will see it soon in the procedural resolution, and that is we had some issues historically where House members would introduce House joint resolutions for commemorations or memorials of individuals or groups and would not include a senator, and by the time the bills made it to the Senate, under the rules, it was too late to be added onto those House joint resolutions. So as a result, we came to an agreement that you can now be added up to 1 hour after the end of the session in which that resolution is taken up, you can be added onto those joint resolutions, which hopefully now each member will have to be looking and pay close attention, but it should eliminate those challenges where a Senate member or House member did not talk to the overlapping members in their area and they wanted to be added in. Mr. President, a couple final items in Rule 53A on line 950. As we went through these, and I'd love to take credit for it, but it was Madam Clerk's team that picked up on this. Code requires that the individuals on the Senate Ethics Advisory Panel be nominated by the Committee on Rules, and we had it in the rules as the Privileges and Elections Committee, so we changed that. And then finally, Mr. President, as you look in the appendix, you will notice a lot of red. The Madam Clerk's team, I think, did a very good job of going through and alphabetizing in the appendix each of the rules to make it much easier for us to find things to go along. None of those were changed, but they were moved from place to place, and thus they were in red. Mr. President, one other item that I will point out to the members as we're going through this, and that is in Rule 36. This was not a change, but just particularly for the new members in case the situation does come up on page 29, and that is you must be present in your seat to vote or you will be counted as a no in the occasions except of pairs, which is very unusual, and in the case of judicial elections. So as a tradition, we have had the practice of never voting nay on a judge. This allows you to sit in your seat and not vote and not be counted as a nay, so you don't have to get up and walk off the chamber if you choose not to vote for a particular nominee for judicial election. Mr. President, I think I hit all the changes, and with that would move their adoption.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson. Would the Senator yield for a question?
Mr. President, I yield.
He yields, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would direct the gentleman's attention to Rule 20A, and I see that we struck out the as nearly as practicable language in referencing the two majority political parties. Can you, first of all, agree that that is what happened?
Senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, I would answer to the gentleman that yes, we did strike out as nearly as practicable.
Further question, Mr. President?
Will the gentleman yield for an additional question?
I yield.
He yields, Senator.
I'd ask the gentleman, under these rules that we're about to adopt, is there any limitation on any party's representation on a committee? In other words, is there any degree of proportionality where members of a caucus might be entitled to a certain number of seats on a committee?
Senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, I would answer the gentleman that in these rules, nor in the rules that we were operating on prior to this this session, was there any limit, high or low, on committee membership, except that there is language somewhere further down that each senator shall serve on a committee if possible. But Mr. President, I would further answer the gentleman that as I read that particular section, the as nearly as practicable goes with the residency of the congressional districts and not with the political party piece of the language.
Further question, Mr. President.
From Fairfax, will Senator yield for an additional question?
I yield for additional question.
I'd ask the gentleman, and I understand what he's saying about Rule 20A, but would he agree with me that the reference to the two major political parties would have no meaning being in this paragraph unless it was originally intended to give proportionality? Otherwise, there'd be no reason to even have it referenced.
Senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, I would answer the gentleman that I disagree with that analysis. Mr. President, as I read this rule, and as you read it in context with the continued discussions of the rule, it talks about the two major political parties shall make up the membership. It also says that there's an individual not a member of one of those major political parties, then they could also be a member of a committee. So as we look down through it, I don't think the changed items on 434 to 437 have any impact on the political party language at all.
Senator from Fairfax City.
Final further question, Mr. President.
Yield for an additional question.
Final additional answer, Mr. President.
Yield, Senator.
I'd ask the gentleman, does the minority party have any rights under these rules in terms of proportional representation?
Senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, if you could repeat that, I'm sorry.
Mr. President, my question was, does the minority political party have any rights in regard to proportional representation under these rules?
Mr. President, I would answer the gentleman that that the rights that either political party has under these rules have not changed from the last 4 years to where we are today.
No further questions.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Mr. President, I'd ask if the senator from Hanover would yield for a question.
Would the gentleman from Hanover yield for a question?
Mr. President, I'd yield.
He yields, Senator.
Thank you. On Rule 18, particularly lines 238 to 241, I would ask if Mr. President's Republican predecessor would break ties on matters of organization of the Senate and committee assignments.
The gentleman from Hanover.
Mr. President.
You just explain how you did the first time. I think it would be sufficient.
Okay. Mr. President, as I read the Constitution, the President of the Senate has the ability to break ties on votes, but there are certain things that still require a majority of the Senate members for them to go forward. So whether this language is in the rules specifically about committee assignments and other matters relating to organizations, the language in the Constitution about the President's ability is still there.
Mr. President, would the gentleman yield for an additional question?
Would the senator yield for an additional question?
I yield, Mr. President.
He yields, Senator.
I would ask the gentleman if his side of the aisle did not hire lawyers to defend the opposite interpretation, and did the courts not rule in favor of having the President of the Senate break ties on matters relating to the organization of the Senate?
Senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, I'm not sure that I totally understand the question in relation to this provision. I think this language has only been in the rules for 4 years. It was hotly debated when it was placed in, and now it's no longer going to be in the rules after the next 4 years. But that does not change what the Constitution has in place, and the Constitution, I think, is fairly clear about the President of the Senate's ability to vote on matters where there's equal division of the body, only limited by the times of which there is a certain number of votes required in order for an item to pass. Things like the spending of revenue and the election of judges. So I don't think that this is a sea change in what the authority of the President of the Senate has today versus what he had a week ago.
Mr. President, would the gentleman yield for a final question?
Would the senator yield for an additional question?
Yes, I'd yield, Mr. President.
Senator?
Thank you. Just to clarify, my question is not about breaking ties on routine matters, but it's about specifically on the organization of the Senate. And I'm wondering why exactly the majority party has changed its interpretation that the courts have already ruled on, and that the majority party hired attorneys to defend just about 4 years ago.
Senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, as we go through this body, and I think that there were a couple rulings that Mr. President made last year that he declined to explain the rationale for his rulings, and I didn't agree with that and didn't like it, but it was still the way it was because it was the rule of 21. And I think that that's probably where we are, but I do not wish to opine why somebody might have had one legal thought or hired one attorney versus another. I'll let each individual member answer that for themselves.
Further final question, Mr. President?
Additional question, Senator.
Further final answer, Mr. President.
Senator.
Thank you. I would ask the gentleman Did the president's predecessor not make the exact same interpretation, and was the majority party not in favor of it at that time, so that when a member of the Republican Party makes that rule for an equally divided Senate, the majority party has a different opinion than when there's a Democratic lieutenant governor? Would that be the case?
Senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, I don't even know how to answer that question. I mean, I think the rule is pretty clear. We're taking it out. The Constitution is in place. And everybody can argue their political sides and write op-eds on whichever side of the direction they want to be, or hire lawyers. But it is very clear of what the authority of the president is and is not, regardless of whether this language is in the rules or is not there.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Newport News, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to offer an amendment to the proposed rules.
Senator has the floor.
It's being passed out, but I would move the amendment be agreed to and waive the reading of the amendment.
The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. The Senator from Newport News.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, first let me say that I plan to offer this amendment regardless of who is in the majority. This is not aimed at any one party, but rather trying to improve the system. The Senate rules invest the majority with vast powers, and that's the way it should be because elections have consequences. The Senate rules allow the majority to set the ratio of Republicans and Democrats on a committee. They allow the majority to name the chair of each committee and the various subcommittees. And these rules allow the majority to name all of the members of the committee. I believe we should make one small common sense change when it comes to deciding who sits on the various committees. And my amendment simply says, once the majority sets the ratio, then each caucus would appoint their own members to the committees. I believe the caucus knows its members best and will place the people where they want to serve. Committee members ought to have expertise or a passion or at least an interest in the subject matter. But unfortunately, at times, I believe we've not always matched up committee assignments with a member's passion. And that is a criticism of both parties who've had the opportunity to name committee members. Allowing each caucus to fill the committee slots is not unprecedented. I'm told that in the 20 days back in the 90s, each caucus appointed their own members to the committees. Majorities, as we all know, are fragile things. They can disappear overnight. We've seen the majority in the Senate flip back and forth and back again. We ought not to completely revamp committee assignments every time the majority changes. We need to build expertise to have continuity. And members should have some assurance that when the majority changes, their committee assignments will not. I believe we need to have each caucus appoint their own committee members, and I hope the members will support the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would respectfully rise and with all due respect to the Senator from Newport News, suggest that we not adopt this amendment to the rules of the Senate. I compliment him on the creativeness of his thought, particularly on the first day of the session. Our minds are always very fertile as we start out on a new session, and so I thank him for that. I must candidly say that on reflection, the temptation to do this is enormous because I might enjoy watching the food fight that would develop on the other side of the aisle, but that fascination is not significant enough to enamor me to recommend that we adopt this. There are conversations that go on between both sides of the aisle as it relates to the committee appointments. There are a number of considerations that are factored into the committee assignments, including particular areas of expertise that are brought to committees. I think that when you review the proposed committee assignments, that you will see that those considerations were certainly adopted, particularly on the Finance Committee. But I was particularly fascinated by the observation that as the majorities change, that there ought to be some continuity amongst the committees. I admit in the twilight of my career that my memory is rather frail, but I think on recollection, I recall a conversation along these lines that when we went from 2020 and Mr. President made some erroneous rulings that he could participate in breaking a tie on that, that there were significant changes on those committees based upon the Lieutenant Governor's rulings. And so I find the argument less than persuasive based upon what historically has happened in recent years. So I compliment you on the creativeness of that, but I also suggest that we reject the adoption of that amendment.
Thank you, Senator. For the new members, this is going to be a voice vote. So the question on the floor is, will the floor amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The chair is uncertain. We'll have a recorded vote. All in favor of agreeing to the motion, to the floor amendment, will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 19, noes 21.
Ayes 19, noes 21. The amendment does not pass. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, the resolution having been explained, I would move its passage at this point.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall...
Mr. President.
Yes, the senator from Roanoke City.
I thought I had a request to speak, but maybe I didn't. Would the senator from Hanover rise for a question?
Would the senator from Hanover yield for a question?
Mr. President, I'd yield.
He yields, Senator.
Will the senator look at rules 18G dealing with local government, 18H dealing with privileges and elections, and 18J dealing with Committee on Transportation? I noticed that under these proposed rules, the membership declines from 14 members on each of those committees to 13 committees, members on each of those committees. Again, local government, P&E, and transportation. Can the senator explain what the rationale is for reducing the membership of those three committees?
Senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, I'd answer the gentleman that as the process of putting the committees went forward, there are a number of different thought processes. And those thought processes included merging committees, eliminating committees, merging concepts, changing concepts where committees ultimately went. And in large part, it's due to the workload that we each have, and in part due to the conflicts that many find themselves on committees. I know I myself over the last couple of years has spent more than one day with a proxy in one committee and physically sitting in another committee, and we do not do our best work when we are divided that way. It is much better when we can all be in the committee and focused on coming to conclusions. So as we went through that process, there was an attempt made to have individuals in places where they could be able to focus on the work and be able to physically be present. And as we work those numbers out, instead of combining or eliminating committees, we just eliminated some membership on certain committees, and that's where we ended up. So at the end of the day, I think the last total, we're looking at somewhere less than 6 potential conflicts now, and we're going to try to see what we can do to eliminate those even further as we look at the times and days which each committee will meet and try to come to conclusions of that in the next 24 hours.
Mr. President, will the senator yield for another question?
Will the senator yield for an additional question?
Mr. President, I'd yield.
He yields, Senator.
Having heard that answer, would the problem be solved if you had proportional representation between the parties on each of these committees?
Senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, I would answer the gentleman that problems can be solved in many different directions, and maybe some of the thought processes that I had about how to best solve the problem would be to have eliminated a committee or two, but as we debated each of those different thought processes, this is the conclusion that we were able to build consensus on our side and the one that we're putting forward.
Mr. President, will Senator yield for another question?
Senator, yield for an additional question.
I would, Mr. President.
Yield, Senator.
Mr. President, would the Senator agree by reducing these 3 committees from 15 members to 13 committees? This violates the traditions and the custom and practice of the Senate going back many, many years with regard to these committees.
Senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, I don't think I would agree with that. I think the committee numbers and memberships and how many committees there are in general have changed over the years.
No further question.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall Senate Resolution 22 be agreed to? All in favor of agreeing to the resolution will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The resolution is agreed to. The next order of business is the election of officers of the Senate. The first is the election of the President pro tem of the Senate for a term of 4 years. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's indeed my privilege to rise for the nomination of the Senate pro tem to nominate my seatmate, the Honorable Stephen D. Newman of Lynchburg, for the office of the President pro tem of the Senate of Virginia.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I rise to second the nomination of the senator from Lynchburg to the office of President pro tempore of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the nominations be closed. And in support of that, I would say my good friend from Lynchburg and I came in together many years ago in 1996. He and I and the senator from Roanoke City are the last 3 remaining from that rather large class. I think we have in Senator Newman, a man of integrity, soft-spoken, but willing to work in a bipartisan manner to advance the work of the Senate, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, the nominations are closed. As many as in favor of Stephen D. Newman of Lynchburg for President pro tem of the Senate will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. Stephen D. Newman of Lynchburg is declared duly elected President pro tem of the Senate. Congratulations. The next order of business is the election of the clerk of the Senate to serve for a term of 4 years. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is indeed a genuine privilege to rise and make the nomination for the clerk of the Senate, and I would respectfully place the name of Susan Clark Schar into nomination for the clerk of the Senate. While many of us that have had the privilege of serving for a number of years affectionately refer to her as Ma or Mother, we do know that she, in fact, has done an extraordinary job of overseeing the operations and maintaining the integrity of the institution of the Senate for many, many years. As I reflect on her career, I think her greatest accomplishment in my humble and sometimes myopic perspective is that she has assembled an extraordinary staff in the Senate office that does a marvelous job in both the operational standpoint, but the accessibility and the preservation of the institution. And I think, and I compliment you for that, and I respectfully place her name into nomination.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I second the nomination of Susan Clark Schar as clerk of the Senate. And Mr. President, just noticing that I have the ability to remarks, I would disagree from the gentleman from James City County on the title that I refer to her as. It is typically boss, because she is the one that is directing many of us on many different issues. And I would say, Mr. President, that we are very fortunate to have Madam Clerk serving in that office, and she and her team do a tremendous job. Everything from making sure that our offices are taken care of, our needs as senators are met, to having the best page program in the entire country. This body could be run much differently than what it is, but it could, but in no way could it be better than what Madam Clerk's team does for us. And I am very thankful for the time and effort, many late nights that are put in, many emails at all times of the day. You cannot imagine the issues that she deals with. And I am thankful that she has decided to endure each of the 40 of us for another term.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, I would move now that the nominations be closed, and simply adding to that, looking around, I think I am the only person here who was in the on this side of the dais when Madam Clerk started out. And Susan, you have done an outstanding job there. Oh, she says I'm off. You replaced Jay, who went up when the governor became, it's nice we're having this conversation right now. But anyway, she's done just an outstanding job. And I told the press one time, if we don't show up, work goes on. If they don't show up, we are in a world of hurt. That's the end. So, and you have assembled just a fabulous staff. They really are great. Many of them have won national awards. I can't think of anyone we'd rather have standing up there helping to run this show than you. So congratulations, and again, I renew that the nominations be closed.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, the nominations are closed. As many are in favor of Susan Clark Shar for Clerk of the Senate will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. Susan Clark Shar is declared duly elected clerk of the Senate to serve for a term of 4 years. Congratulations. The oath of office will be administered by the Honorable Cleo E. Powell, Justice of the Supreme Court of Virginia. Justice Powell, thank you for being here. Yes, ma'am.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge.
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
all the duties incumbent upon me.
all the duties incumbent upon me
as Clerk of the Senate of Virginia.
as Clerk of the Senate of Virginia,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
The next order of business is the oath of office of the Chief Deputy Clerk of the Senate pursuant to Section 30-15.1 of the Code of Virginia. The oath of office will be administered by the Clerk of the Senate, Susan Clark Shar.
You raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
all the duties incumbent upon me as Chief Deputy Clerk of the Senate of Virginia,
as the Chief Deputy Clerk of the Senate of Virginia,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Go Brunswick County.
The next order of business is the election of the Sergeant at Arms of the Senate, the Senator from James City County, Senator Norment.
Mr. President, it is indeed my pleasure to rise to nominate Hobie Lehman as the Sergeant at Arms for the Senate of Virginia, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I would like to second the nomination of Hobie Lehman to be the Sergeant at Arms for the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the nominations be closed and also express my support for Mr. Lehman.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, the nominations are closed. As many as are in favor of D. Hobie Lehman for Sergeant at Arms will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. D. Hobie Lehman is declared duly elected Sergeant at Arms of the Senate. The next order of business is the election of pages of the Senate for the 2016 session. The Senate will stand at ease while the pages enter the chamber.
I don't remember Justice.
James City County, Senator Norment.
Mr. President, it's indeed my pleasure to nominate the following pages, and as their names are called, if they would be so kind to step forward following the announcement of their name. The first page that I would like to announce the appointment of is from the 2nd District of Virginia, and her name is Sienna Monet Bibbs of Newport News, Virginia. From the 3rd Senatorial District is the page that is nominated is John Alexander DeVore. I was wondering where Jack was hiding. There you are, sir. From the 4th Congressional District, it is my pleasure to nominate Adam Palmer Jamal of Montpelier, Virginia. From the 7th Congressional District, I nominate Amina Arlene Gassab of Virginia Beach. From the 9th Congressional District, Perry Edmund Scott of Henrico. From the 13th District, Jennifer Elizabeth Greason of Ashburn. A familiar name, I believe. From the 14th District, Isabel Maria Arajo of Ivor, Virginia. From the 15th District, Sutton Bell Montgomery of South Hill. From the 16th District, Aubriana Mariah Harris of South Chesterfield. From the 20th District, Richard Fitzgerald Dickerson of downtown Galax. From the 21st District, Fiona Claire Miller of Roanoke. From the 23rd District, Madison McKinley Martin of Evington. From the 24th District, Roth Stephen Landis of Augusta. From the 27th District, Lillian Pease Gable of Loudon. From the 28th District, Lillian Simone Tapp of Stafford. From the 32nd District, Taylor Nicole Hannum Zatz of Fairfax. From the 33rd District, Grace Colleen Maloney of Chantilly. From the 35th District, Gardner Curry McCabe of Arlington. From the 37th District, Kennedy Blanchett Jones of Fairfax. From the 38th District, Gavin Scott Hamilton of Russell. How are you today? Good.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I second the excellent nominations of the gentleman from James City County.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that nominations be closed.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, the nominations are closed. As many as are in favor of the nominees named for pages will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. Those nominated are declared duly elected pages of the Senate for the 2016 session. The chair requests announcements of page appointments. The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I'd like to announce the appointment of Tyler Lawson Garrett of Lynchburg to be a page of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, it's my pleasure to announce the appointment of Adam Stephen Kelly of Mechanicsville as a page of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from James City County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to announce the appointment of Riley Michael Moore of Dublin as a page of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to announce the appointment of Brian Edward Whetstone of Richmond as a page of Virginia.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Henrico, Senator McEachin.
Mr. President, I wish to announce the appointment of Isabella Lee Riley of Richmond as a page of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. And I wish to announce the appointment of James Lachlan McClellan of Norfolk as page for the Senate. Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, the clerk has advised me of the following pages that have been appointed pursuant to the rules of the Senate that we just passed. And I will try not to butcher them any worse than the senator from James City did this process. Julia Diane Ackham of Richmond. Uzair Jawad Batty of Chesterfield. Charles Fairfax Conquest of Crozier. Peyton Lee Emerson of Williamsburg. Laura Harris Garrett of Louisa. Chase Donovan Geeling of Mosley. Hannah Anna Gilden of Virginia Beach. I don't know about this next one, Mr. President. Colin Patrick Hendrickson Stanley of Franklin County. Madam Clerk might need to keep an extra eye out in this family history. Sinead Gail Nardi White of Nelson. Janet Evelyn Palmer of Brunswick, Brendan David Gottschall Smith of Poquoson, Paul Anthony Southern of Pulaski, Leah Madden Servell of Alexandria. Mr. President, another one Madam Clerk might need to keep an eye out on as well, based on family history. And Gareth Langhorne Vaughn of Richmond.
Thank you, Senator. To all the pages, welcome and congratulations. We have watched a number of the classes over the years, and I will tell you that we're very proud that the Page program here in the Commonwealth is the best in the world. So this is a wonderful opportunity for all of you to come and see how policy is made and to get to know your senators from around the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so it is, again, it's a wonderful opportunity. We look forward to having you. We're going to work hard. We're also going to have fun. And before you know it, the 60 days will be by. But certainly enjoy your experience here. Congratulations. And on behalf of all the senators and the staff of the Clerk of the Senate, I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering and welcome the Pages to the floor of the Senate. Thank you. The Senate will come to order. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I move the rules be suspended, the Committee on Rules be discharged from further consideration, the reading of the title and the readings of the title be waived. Senate Resolution number 4, which is the blue sheet in your amendment folder, be taken up for immediate consideration.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended, the Committee on Rules be discharged from further consideration, the readings of the title be waived, and Senate Resolution 4 be taken up for immediate consideration? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The rules are suspended, the readings waived, and SR 4 is taken up for immediate consideration. The clerk will please report the resolution.
Senate Resolution number 4, the 2016 operating resolution.
Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I move that the resolution be agreed to, and speaking to that very briefly. Mr. President, this is, members of the Senate, this is the operating resolution where you're directed to pay for the PAGE program, the per diem, your secretaries, and all the support staff that go on, and it's the one that we use to get organized, and this is the final item on the Senate organization, and after we take up this, we'll move on to the organization with the House in the procedural resolution.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? All in favor of agreeing to the resolution will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The resolution is agreed to.
Just at ease.
Oh, I thought they recessed.
No, they're at ease.
The senator from James City County, Senator Norman, will advise the House of Delegates that the Senate is duly organized and ready to proceed to business. The Senate will stand at ease until Senator Norman returns. The Senate will come to order. Sergeant at Arms. Please receive it. Welcome, Delegate Cox. Thank you, Delegate Cox. The clerk will receive it. Being procedural, the resolution will be taken up for immediate consideration. The clerk will please report the resolution.
House Joint Resolution Number 150, notifying the Governor of Organization. Resolved by the House of Delegates, the Senate concurring, that a committee be appointed composed of 6 on the part of the House of Delegates and 5 on the part of the Senate to notify the Governor that the General Assembly is duly organized and is ready to receive any communication he may desire to make.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? All in favor of the resolution will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed to. The senator from James City, Senator Norment, will inform the House of Delegates of the action of the Senate. Pursuant to the foregoing resolution, the chair appoints the senator from James City, Senator Norment, the senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman, the senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal, the senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw, and the senior senator from Henrico, Senator McEachin, as the committee on the part of the Senate, together with members of the House, to inform the governor that the General Assembly is duly organized and ready to receive any communication he may desire to make. The Senate will be at ease until the committee returns. The Senate will come to order. Senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, the committee you appointed to inform the governor of organization of the General Assembly wishes to report that we have performed the duty assigned to them and that the governor would be pleased to address the joint order of the legislature.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am sending to the clerk's desk the committee nominations report on the Senate standing committees, which I would like to be placed before the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. The clerk will please read the report.
2016 Senate Standing Committees: Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. Senator Stewart, Chair. Hanger, Ruff, Obenshain, McEachin, Peterson, Marsden, Stanley, Black, Miller, Eben, Lewis, Chafin, Dance, Suderline. Commerce and Labor. Senators Wagner, Chair. Saslaw, Norman, Newman, Obenshain, Stewart, Stanley, Alexander, Cosgrove, Chafin, Dance, Lucas, McDougall, Black, and Sturtevant. Courts of Justice. Senator Obenshain, Chair. Saslaw, Norman, Howell, Lucas, Edwards, McDougall, McEachin, Stewart, Stanley, Reeves, Garrett, Chafin, Deeds, and Sturtevant. Education and Health. Senator Newman, Chair. Saslaw, Lucas, Howell, Locke, Barker, Black, Carrico, Garrett, Peterson, Cosgrove, Lewis, Donovan, Chase, and Suderline. Finance. Senators Norman and Hanger, co-chairs. Senators Howell, Saslaw, Lucas, Newman, Ruff, Wagner, McDougall, Vogel, Carrico, Alexander, Obenshain, Barker, and Donovan. General Laws and Technology. Senator Ruff, Chair. Locke, Peterson, Barker, Vogel, Stewart, Black, Eben, Reeves, Garrett, Wexton, Surville, DeStuff, McPike, and Suderline. Local Government. Senator Stanley, Chair. Hanger, Marsden, Miller, Favola, Lewis, Cosgrove, Surville, DeStuff, Donovan, Chase, Sturtevant, and McPike. Privileges and Elections. Senator Vogel, Chair. Howell, Deeds, Edwards, McEachin, Reeves, Garrett, Miller, Eben, Chafin, DeStuff, Chase, and Sturtevant. Rehabilitation and Social Services. Senator Reeves, Chair. Hanger, Wagner, Locke, McDougall, Black, Favola, Wexton, Peterson, Chafin, Cosgrove, Dance, Surville, DeStuff, and McPike. Transportation. Senator Carrico, Chair. Newman, Deeds, Marsden, Favola, Alexander, Cosgrove, Edwards, Wexton, Garrett, DeStuff, Chase, and Suderline. Rules. McDougall, Chair. Norman, Hanger, Newman, Ruff, Wagner, Obenshain, Vogel, Stewart, Stanley, Carrico, Reeves, Saslaw, Locke, and Dance.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
I move that the committee nominations be adopted.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the report be adopted? All in favor of adoption of the report will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The committee nominations report is adopted. Sergeant at Arms, please receive it. Welcome again, Delegate Cox.
Providing for joint assembly and establishing schedule for the conduct of business, coming before the 2016 regular session for 2003, 2017, regular session requesting continuance.
Thank you, Delegate. The clerk will receive it. The clerk will please read the title of HJR 37.
House Joint Resolution Number 37, providing for a joint assembly, establishing a schedule for the conduct of business coming before the 2016 regular session of the General Assembly of Virginia, and providing for legislative continuity between the 2016 and 2017 regular sessions of the General Assembly.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I move the rules be suspended, the Committee on Rules be discharged from further consideration of the resolution, the reading of the title be waived, and HJR 37 be taken up for immediate consideration.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended, the Committee on Rules be discharged from further consideration of the resolution, the readings of the title be waived, and HJR 37 be taken up for immediate consideration? As many are in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The rules are suspended to take up the resolution for immediate consideration. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I move the resolution be agreed to, and speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, each of the members in their yellow folder has House Joint Resolution Number 37. It is similar to the joint resolution that we've used to organize in each of our previous sessions, with 3 changes, and I'm just going to point those out to you. The first is on line 40. The co-patron status on commending and memorial joint resolutions, which we discussed in our rules. It is changed to allow us to be able to have that opportunity to add on to those commending and memorial joint resolutions. The second change is on line 159, rule number 21, and it provides that there shall be 48 hours, that the conference report shall be received for 48 hours prior to a vote, unless there is determined by 2/3 of the members of each of the House and Senate to vote earlier than 48 hours on the budget. This is a change that passed the Senate in bill form each of the last couple years, had gone down to the House only to be defeated, but this year we were able to negotiate it and put it in the rules, so each member will have at least 48 hours to look at the budget after the conference committee has completed its work. And then the third set of items, Mr. President, are on lines, starting on lines 164. Language is added that will provide in that conference report on the budget, a couple things must be identified. Those are, 1, a non-state agency appropriation, an item, number 2, an item in the conference report that was not included in a budget bill passed by the House or Senate, and number 3, any legislation that failed in either the House or the Senate would have to be identified in specificity. Mr. President, with those changes, I think the remainder of business operates the same, and I'd renew my motion to approve the resolution.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? All in favor of agreeing to the resolution will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Ayes 40, noes 0. The resolution is agreed to. The clerk will now please read the title of HJR 38.
House Joint Resolution Number 38, establishing a schedule for the conduct of business for the pre-filing period of the 2017 regular session of the General Assembly of Virginia.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I move that the rules be suspended, the Committee on Rules be discharged from further consideration of the resolution, the readings of the title be waived, and HJR 38 be taken up for immediate consideration.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended, the Committee on Rules be discharged from further consideration of the resolution, the readings of the title be waived, and HJR 38 be taken up for immediate consideration? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The rules are suspended to take up the resolution for immediate consideration. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I move the resolution be agreed to, and speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, HJR 38 sets the time frame of pre-filing for the 2017 regular session. We're already preparing. It will be Monday, December 5th of 2016, and then drafts shall be made available to each member by December the 30th. So with that explanation, I renew my motion that it be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? All in favor of agreeing to the resolution will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The resolution is agreed to. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal, will please inform the House of Delegates of the action of the Senate. If there are resolutions, petitions, and bills, the time is now in order for that, for those to be introduced. Senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Could you repeat that because someone didn't hear you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The time has come for resolutions, petitions, and bills to be presented. Do you want to wait for Ryan to get back? Senate will stand at ease. The Senate will come to order. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, and particularly those senators that are new members, if you will notice on the first page of the calendar, every morning there are announcements that are bracketed that you should direct your attention to. One deadline has already passed, and that is at 10 o'clock this morning. The deadline expired for filing bills that qualified for pre-filing, so any subsequent filing of bills would go towards your numerical count. The second bracket that is on the front there indicates that today is the last day for any bills that are pertaining to VRS or legislation creating continuing studies. Any senator that has a first day bill, if you would be so kind at this point to indicate that you have a first day bill that has not been filed, and that way the clerk's office will look forward to hearing from you by 5 p.m. today. So does anyone have a first day bill that has not been filed? Do not be bashful. Put your hands up so we can see. Okay. I would further direct your attention 48 hours ahead of time on behalf of Senator Hanger and myself that Friday, January the 15th at 5 p.m. is the absolute deadline for filing any budget amendments. So I would encourage you that if you have some budget amendments that you desire to file, to please do so sooner than later, because I do not anticipate that there will be any generous dispensations in that regard.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any other business to come before the Senate? Being none, the clerk will please report any announcements on the desk.
Today, Wednesday, January 13th, the Joint Senate Committee for Courts of Justice and the House Committee for Courts of Justice will meet at 3:45 p.m. in House Room C for a presentation by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Virginia. This is a time change. 3:45, House Room C. Tomorrow, Thursday, January 14th, the Committee on Education and Health will meet at 9 a.m., Senate Room B. The Republican caucus will meet at 11:30 a.m. in Senate Room 2. The Democratic caucus will meet at 11:30 a.m. in Senate Room 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the request of Senator Obenshain, who is chairing the Senate Courts of Justice Committee, I would encourage all the members of that committee to be punctual, because the Chief Justice of the Virginia Supreme Court is looking forward to making that presentation. And Senator Obenshain, I apologize for preempting you while you were out of the room, sir. 3:45 is what they announced. So with that, Mr. President, if there are no further announcements, I would respectfully move that the Senate of Virginia now stand in recess until 6:30 p.m. for purposes of receiving the remarks of His Excellency, the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate stand in recess until 6:30 p.m. tonight? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The Senate stands in recess until 6:30 p.m. tonight, at which time it will convene in the Senate chamber to proceed to the House of Delegates to receive the State of the Commonwealth address by the Governor.